The special meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees convening as the Risk Management Committee. Ms. Ramirez, would you please confirm the quorum?
Yes, sir. The mayor is not present. Everyone else is here. We have a quorum.
Good, thank you. At this time, we'd like to do our safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance.
Good afternoon. We first wanted to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If the door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to ensure we're always ready. Will you please stand with me for an invocation? For a quiet moment, I invite you to express gratitude for our health, for our family and our friends, and for the opportunity to come together as a community today. We honor our trustees for the responsibility they bear. We wish them success today in making decisions with wisdom and humility. We are reminded that we are all stewards acting on behalf of our customers. May we accomplish our goals together with that singular purpose in mind. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
At this time, we have no public comments, so we'll move to item number 4, the minutes of the Risk Management Committee meeting held on 6/17/24. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Have a
Second.
move? Second?
Dr. Mackey, I've got some comments on the minutes.
Okay, sure.
You ready for it? Dr. Mackey, I intend to vote against approval of the minutes, and I respectfully ask that my reasons be included in the minutes of today's Risk Management Committee, or RMC, meeting. A little over a week ago at a meeting of our Operations Oversight Committee, I went out of my way to compliment the person who oversaw the preparation of that committee's minutes, which I was told is our Chief Customer Strategy Officer, Deanna Hardwick. I thought Ms. Hardwick's minutes captured the substance of that meeting in appropriate detail by including challenging questions posed by trustees and management's responses. The minutes before us today are what might be described as perfunctory. They feature and highlight the positive assertions of management, but memorialize none of the questions and comments of trustees. At our last RMC meeting, there were 4 management presentations. In the minutes before us today for approval, after each presentation is summarized, the following sentence is repeated. The Board of Trustees asked questions and discussed the presentation. The minutes leave out the most important part of the meeting. I hope that the preparer of the minutes of our RMC meeting today can take his or her cue from Ms. Hardwick on minutes preparation. In the meantime, as I said, I plan to vote against approval of the minutes of our last RMC meeting. And I have an additional observation, which I guess is a point of order, and I doubt they can do this, but if they could put up slides 71 or page 1 and 2 of agenda item number 9, the trustees sitting here could actually look at it under the last tab. And I'm quoting from the last sentence of the first page of the Risk Management Committee's charter, and I quote, "Minutes of meetings will be prepared by staff and approved by the board at a regularly scheduled board meeting," close quote. So note the word will, so this requirement is mandatory, and clearly the RMC minutes cannot be approved today because this is an RMC meeting, not a regularly scheduled board meeting. Even if it was argued it's also a board meeting, today is not a regularly scheduled board meeting. And in fact, On the first line of today's agenda, it says special meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. So recognizing what we're being asked to do here today violates the charter. Dr. Mackey, I'd like to suggest that this item be deferred until a future regularly scheduled board meeting, which incidentally would allow time for the preparer of these minutes to revise them along the lines I've suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, is this a legal meeting that we had, the last risk management meeting? Is this illegal for our minutes today?
This is the same way that we have been approving the minutes for the Risk Committee. I understand what Trustee Steen's objections are, so to me, we are good to approve the committee minutes here in committee. It is the full board meeting. If he would like to also approve them in the full board meeting, I see no problem with doing things twice.
We have a motion, and we have a second to approve the board minute. Yes.
I actually agree with this about the, I didn't realize that it said this and that this was a conflict. It does say approved by the board at a regularly scheduled board meeting and not at the Risk Management Committee meeting.
I absolutely understand Trustee Steen's reading of the government's documents. This is the way the board has been doing this since I can remember, so no one has objected to it, including Trustee Steen in any of the prior times we've done it, so I was unaware of his objection or his interpretation of the governance documents.
Well, I know. I still think it's
Well, if
wrong. Could we?
that's what we can correct it and do it at a regular board meeting.
You can also
Yeah.
just change the charter to be more clear.
Yeah.
Which is on the agenda later today, so you could just remove the objectionable language.
Can we put that in the charter that we could approve this next, risk management meeting or regular board meeting? If we could do that. That'd be good. No problem. Okay. Thank you all. Instead of approving it, we'll move on to item number 5.
I just want to make sure I understand. So we are not going to vote to approve it? Do you want to
Well,
circle back after the governance review vote?
Well, one thing is, we've been doing this for 7 years. I've been on it. We've been approving it at the meetings.
We can just circle back to vote after we change the governance documents.
Today? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good. We were already first or second, so we don't have to, worry about that. That's been done. Okay, circle back and do that. That'll be fine. Okay, let's move to item and you're going to put that in there too, either regular or risk management meeting. And then we'll be legal. We'll do it right. Would that be fine? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 5, enterprise risk management update. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. Today I'll discuss points, and my discussion will be around current and emerging risks, results of the ERM or Enterprise Risk Management Review, and ERM critical initiatives and actions. The information that I will present to you today gives you insight into the risks that other utilities, as well as CPS Energy, are considering as we plan for the long and short term. At the Risk Management Committee meeting in June, I mentioned that the discussions with other peer utility groups were heavily focused on energy transition and major investments that will be needed to meet growth, reliability, and sustainability. Not a lot has changed on that front. As CO2 emitting coal and gas plants are retired or newer technology is implemented, we will have to make sure that we are reviewing all of those risks. And so I'd like to draw your attention to the utility risk trends listed on this slide. The Deloitte Insights article 2024 Power and Utilities Industry Outlook lists 5 overarching risk trends. And I'd like to spend some time reviewing these risk trends because there's been a lot of discussion and presentations over the last several months that are related to these items. For instance, in March, we came to the board and talked about selecting Oracle as our ERP solution. Oracle will help us not only modernize our business practices, but it'll also help us to better work with our customers. It'll also help us with capital planning and resource planning. It'll also provide us a better platform for artificial intelligence. We have to look at AI in 2 views, one as a threat and the other as an opportunity. Artificial intelligence is becoming more sophisticated, and we have to be aware of cyber intrusions to be prepared for them. We also have to utilize AI so that we can do better data analytics, so we can offer more improved products and services to our customers. And so Evan will be up later on in the Risk Management Committee meeting to talk about AI. About a year ago, we also came to the board and talked about transmission and generation constraints as we look at our large load and data center customers and the power that they will need. We also have a growth in our city, which will require more electrification or need for electrification as there's more EVs, there's more electric stoves and electric pumps and such. And so our power generation strategy that we've also talked to the board about several times over the year addresses not only zero emission, but also the need for more power to meet our growing customer needs now and in the future. As we talk about climate, it is a growing concern. We know that the weather and climate really impact the reliability and resiliency of our service territory and our ability to provide electricity to our customers. This summer 2024 Electricity Network publication reported that in 2023, the U.S. had $1 billion worth of weather and climate disasters. We have seen that there have been several hurricanes that have hit mainland U.S. Beryl significantly impacted Texas, and fortunately for us in San Antonio, we were not as significantly impacted. We have had very brutal heat in the summer, and we will continue to have heat in the summer. At our last board meeting, it was mentioned that we would have La Niña weather, which will bring above normal temperatures, and drier weather, which may increase our chances for wildfires. But also, we have presented to the board on our winter and summer preparedness programs that help to mitigate some of these risks. So as we look at these risk trends, as well as the presentations we've had over the year, we can see that we have positioned CPS Energy so that we can lessen our exposure to these risks. So I'd like to give you some perspective on emerging risks, as we have the Gartner third quarter top 5 emerging utility risks. And so it's no surprise that AI and extreme heat consequences are on this list. Unsettled regulatory and legal environment, IT vendor criticality, and misaligned organization talent profile are listed here. For regulatory and legal environment, the reason why this is primarily on the list is because it was an election year. But for CPS Energy specifically, we have to make sure that as we implement our power generation strategy, that we take into consideration ERCOT, PUC, state, local, and federal regulations and policies. IT vendor criticality is something on our radar as well. And this is about an over-reliance on IT vendors. And so in order for us to be aligned with this, we have to make sure that we understand and are aligned with our IT vendors' cyber hygiene and cyber programs so that we know that our data is being protected and that we are aligned with the way that they're handling our data. And the misaligned organization talent profile, we have many conversations around this as we have looming retirements over the next several years. And we are implementing our digital transformation starting with Oracle. We want to make sure that we have the talent and the skills needed to meet our needs in the future. And so this is a discussion that we are having amongst leadership. And so as we think about the rapidly evolving risks, we also have to make sure that we're planning. And so we continuously strive to improve our planning approach. We strive to make sure that our planning approach is risk-informed, that we have business plans in place, they're aligned to our budget, and that we have measures to monitor our progress. The risk management team is involved in these discussions with integrated planning, as well as with Horizon 2050. Integrated planning has been around for quite some time. It primarily consists of the risk, business planning, and budget team, and it's a 1 to 5 year outlook. Horizon 2050, on the other hand, that's newer to the organization, and it's an exciting conversation, and Elena Ball will be up later in our presentation or in the meeting to discuss Horizon 2050. But no matter if we're talking about integrated planning or Horizon 2050, we have some key focus areas that we talk about, which is customer value. And that entails things like reliability and affordability. Financials, making sure that we're prudent in our financials and how we spend money so we don't overburden our customers. And then prioritization, making sure that we are implementing or investing in our assets in a timely manner. We're not too early and not too soon. And then overall, again, making sure that we're monitoring our progress through metrics. Our goal through integrated planning and Horizon 2050 teams is to create the platform for the organization to discuss risks, plans, and budget as it relates to operations and strategic initiatives. And a forum that's action-oriented, inspires a forward-focused vision, encourages open dialogue with healthy disagreement, all to enhance organizational effectiveness. How we plan for our risks now will position us for the future. And so you can see that our planning has become more complex and sophisticated, and our risks are rapidly evolving. And so with that, the organization wanted to make sure that we had an ERM program that was effective. So ERM and Audit Services partnered with Deloitte to have an assessment done on the Enterprise Risk Management Program. And I'm thrilled to announce that Deloitte's report did not list any deficiencies in the report. The report was structured in that it identified strengths and recommendations, and those recommendations were very much aligned with the thoughts that risk management had to move the ERM program forward. Some of the strengths were that the reorg to the business strategy team was effective and that we're closer to the strategic decisions and discussions so that we can better understand the risks in the organization. And although the team is new, we still had a really good pulse on risk management, and we were dedicated and committed to making sure that we move from a traditional risk management program to a more dynamic risk management program. Again, the recommendations were about communication, providing more tools, and being more collaborative, all aligned with our thoughts. Overall, the ERM program is effective and appropriate, and the items that we believe that we will be implementing will be adding value to the organization. With that being said, enterprise risk management is focused on some critical initiatives at this point, in part because of the Deloitte report. We are improving our risk statement and risk mitigation documentation. We have a tool in place that will help us to better capture the ideas and decisions being made, which will help to drive, develop key risk indicators. And we'll have a formal program for this. In the past, we've had an informal program and we had some data points. But we're on a journey for this KRI, and you can see we have a roadmap in that right now we're identifying KRIs for the top 10 risks, and then we'll define measures, set tolerance levels, and develop dashboards, and eventually report out, and then cascade that down to the other risks on the risk register. And we do have a member of our team that will help and develop support the enterprise resource planning transformation risk management. And that means that this person is also the lead in the selection of the independent verification and validation IVMV vendor. And this is something that Evan and I have been reporting on over the last year. We will also be charged to manage this particular vendor. And the last bullet on this slide is to facilitate risk deep dives. So we plan to insert ourselves in the organization more so that, and this could be for projects that are maybe not enterprise related, but it's a way for us to do two things. It's a way for us to guide the organization in more risk-informed decisions and to better understand the organization and the business. And so that really brings us back to energy transition. How will we service our customers and provide power to them in the future? And so we thought it would be a great idea to have a really focused discussion around energy transition. We have Bill Cost, a Senior Vice President at Marsh, who is the Energy and Power Advisory Leader in Marsh's U.S. Energy and Power Practice, here to talk to us about energy transition. He is known for improving clients' knowledge and control of risk. So Bill will talk to us about energy transition, a variety of different technology, and the risks we can consider. Before I introduce Bill, are there any questions?
Are there any questions? Yes. Mr. Steen?
Ms. Ronhell, I appreciate your presentation today and your commendable work to encourage risk awareness and reduced risk exposure. If we could please put up slide 3.
Oh, that's me. Sorry. There we go.
So I want to highlight that statement in dark blue on the right and just read it. We must follow a reasonable and balanced planning approach that enables affordable and reliable energy which contribute to the economic stability of our community. There's much I disagree with about how CPS Energy is being run these days, but I do concur with this statement because it captures the two predominant concerns of our customers, affordability and reliability. So please tell me the source of this statement.
Sir, I believe that's what we at CPS Energy believe in. When we're in our executive leadership meetings, affordability and reliability are top of list.
Thank you.
And then please put up slide 4. So shown are current emerging utility risk according to the consulting firm Gardner. And I note that number 2 is unsettled regulatory and legal environment, and that with a risk score of 3.87, it's only 1/100th of a point behind the top risk, AI-enhanced malicious attacks. Just interested in how you would respond if I asserted that as a consequence of last week's presidential election results, this risk, particularly the unsettled regulatory environment, could be moved up to number 1. And I'm particularly concerned that CPS Energy has made long-range plans and set them in stone and will not appropriately respond to the fact that the regulatory environment is about to undergo a sea change that is a profound transformation. So, Ms. Rangel, will you respond to that?
So this is a perspective. This is a perspective of other utilities and their thoughts. If you're asking me, I've read several articles on the contrary. So there has been some publications where presidential elections don't affect these types of decisions, whether it be climate or what have you.
Anything else, Mr. Steen?
I do have. So this is, Mr. Garza, a couple of months ago at the September 9th special meeting of our Board of Trustees, also called a strategy session, during a discussion about how our community is moving toward severe non-attainment and the actions forced upon CPS Energy as a result, I brought up this idea that things could change dramatically as a result of the upcoming presidential election. And after citing your 20-plus years of being involved in regulatory matters, you were quite vehement that regulatory impacts on CPS Energy wouldn't change no matter how the presidential race turned out. You said twice the Clean Air Act is the Clean Air Act, and added that the EPA will not be any different regardless of whether it's a Republican or Democratic administration. And then Ms. Gonzalez followed up by citing her attendance at a large oil and gas conference in Houston, and that her takeaway was that CPS Energy's interaction with the EPA won't vary, notwithstanding who's president. With all due respect, I think both of you were in error then and are in error now. With the incoming administration, we're going to see a wholesale makeover of the EPA. There's talk, for example, about moving the headquarters and its 7,000 workers out of Washington, D.C., and that from a 16,000-person workforce, thousands of careers are going to lose their jobs. We're focusing on risk today, and I'm very concerned, and I think it's a consequential mistake from a planning point of view not to acknowledge and react appropriately to the change that's going to happen. And I repeat, regardless of one's politics or environmental views, it'd be a significant misstep to not incorporate this into our planning. It's time to anticipate substantial changes, not downplay or deny that they're coming down the pike. And I'd just be interested in your response, Mr. Garza.
We're going to move. Anybody else have any questions? No, you have any questions?
I don't have questions. We don't ask questions, we make statements. So I'm going to just state, again, thank you for the presentation. And again, everybody has an opinion. I believe if you read 2050 plan, it really talks about the future and different scenarios. So I do believe that we are anticipating whether we go right or left. And that's the beauty of what we're doing for the first time in history. Not only did we have a previous plan, 2027, which is what we're executing, we're also thinking about what the future looks like as well. which includes number 2, which includes number 1, which includes 1 through 5. These are plans. Plans are agile, they change. And so I think it's not fair to state, regardless of what article you read, what journal you read, what subject matter expertise you read, we will do what needs to be done in response to whoever's in charge. I think for people out there to think that we're not anticipating that, I think that's silly. And since I was specifically called out, you know, I just want to make sure for the record that I work in an environment that changes every day, and I must respond to that when you're in technology. And so therefore, you adhere to what has to happen. That's what business is all about. I don't think that CPS Energy would be no different.
Thank you. Trustee Romero, you have anything?
I'll just say one thing. And I understand what everybody's saying. I think just because regulation is about to change, likely, and some of the things we thought would continue to be regulations or have been might not be in the future, I don't think we're safe in saying that we need to anticipate that we can't continue to do the things we were going to do as a result of regulation, and that is what the community wanted. Nobody said we should move to renewables because that's what the EPA wants. It was that we should move to renewables because they will save us money and give us more reliability. So, I mean, it's definitely there. We need to see what's going to happen, but you know, I think we should not go too far in the other direction as well at this point.
Yeah, thank you.
Not only that, but Wall Street dictates where we're investing. And I don't see Texas, the state of Texas, moving away from the most carbon, all the projects that they have, which many at this table are benefiting from.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Thank you.
Dr. Mackey, can I hear from Mr. Garza?
No, not today.
Not
Hey,
today?
It's Anna Marie Rangel.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We have number 6, transition.
Dr. Mackey, just a point of order. This is a committee meeting where we're supposed to have interchange
Thank you.
with management.
Thank you,
And you're not allowing,
Thank you, Mr. Steen. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. We could do number 6, energy transition.
Thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to speak in front of you today. There are a few extremes as noteworthy as Mount Everest. As the highest summit in the world, it represents a persistent challenge for climbers and is a convenient metaphor for more average folks like myself. In 1953, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay became the first 2 people recognized to summit Mount Everest. Now, while we are familiar with the results, they made it and they survived, we could easily overlook the massive effort that it took to accomplish this amazing feat. 362 porters, 20 Sherpas, and 5 tons of baggage. If we go even farther back in time, another pioneer by the name of Marie Curie dedicated much of her life in the pursuit of knowledge about radioactivity and physics. Despite social challenges from being a foreign woman working in France, she ultimately earned Nobel Prizes separately in chemistry and physics. Her discoveries led to the development of modern medical imaging, such as X-rays. Some risks are obvious. When thinking about summiting Mount Everest, we can identify some obvious risks related to oxygen, hydration, food, cold, visibility, and safety. Some risks might be less obvious, such as those related to route planning and preparation, or the fitness level of the hikers. There might also be unknown or unaddressed risks. Thinking about Madame Curie's research, back then nobody knew about the risks from radiation exposure and others quietly accepted discrimination against women. The energy transition presents us all with a multitude of risks, and we might not yet know about all of them or be comfortable talking about them. Our advisory teams at Marsh empower our clients to improve their knowledge and control of risk. To quote CPS's website, knowledge is power. Today, we're going to increase your knowledge of risk and empower you to proceed with confidence as you continue your energy transition journey. We broadly define the energy transition as a shift in the global energy sector away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy sources to accomplish the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate climate change. If we agree on that definition, then there are three main areas to focus action: shifting the energy mix, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and mitigating climate change. Presumably, each of the first two will contribute to the third. However, if we agree that they are all important, then we can evaluate a broader list of possibilities to accomplish each of these goals. Meaning, CPS could consider additional creative and effective solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as well as undertake projects to directly mitigate climate change's impacts to CPS. We understand CPS's Vision 2027 plan to focus mostly on shifting its energy production mix, retiring over 3 gigawatts of certain gas and coal assets, while adding over 6 gigawatts of renewable power generation, dispatchable resources, and more efficient natural gas-fired power production. The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, which currently assumes retiring or augmenting coal and gas assets with carbon capture technology. Now, thinking about these plans, what are the chances of success? What are the risks? Risk is uncertainty. There's a chance that something happens or doesn't. Most things in life aren't guaranteed, and the risk management cycle can empower you to mitigate and manage downside risk. Some risk is insurable, but how do you know whether you're getting a good deal with that insurance? And what if you can't insure something? You still need to understand the risks and determine your options to control them or avoid them altogether. To illustrate a variety of ways that CPS can understand and control its risks, I'm going to first discuss a hypothetical project example. Let's take a wind farm and analyze some of the key areas of uncertainty. For any of these, CPS could self-perform or contract out work related to site selection, designing, building, owning, and operating the project. Here are some example questions that you can ask your team about this hypothetical wind farm project's risk profile. What happens if the equipment staging area floods during construction? What happens if a storm topples a crane? What if a tornado takes out a full string of operating turbines before the rest of the project is deemed operational? What if the wind turbine equipment manufacturer voids some of the turbine's warranties? What if the renewable energy supplier to CPS defaults? If you self-perform, you retain most of the risks associated with each of these work scopes. If you contract the work out, you can shift a portion of the risk to the contract counterparty and backstop some of that with insurance. However, CPS will likely remain on the hook or holding the bag in the event of a catastrophic situation where an at-fault party doesn't have the balance sheet or insurance to cover all damages. For example, what if you hired a mom-and-pop landscape company and then they caused the next Bastrop wildfire? For this hypothetical wind project, let's quickly dive deeper and analyze some key risks. If you contract out operations and maintenance, assuming CPS owns the project outright. For simplicity, we will still include the OEM since it will have a role to play with respect to providing equipment warranties and likely the source of replacement parts. As project owner, CPS will have various obligations, including debt service if you finance the project. The OEM will also set out operational obligations for the equipment to maintain the warranty. Even if you hire an O&M provider, you will still have the insurable interest for any physical loss or damage, as well as business interruption. But how well does CPS understand and control these risks? What if it's too cold to operate the wind turbines? What if the wind doesn't blow during the year as much as you planned or expected? The original equipment manufacturer will have certain obligations to CPS, but those also have elements of risk. What is covered under the warranty? What if the original equipment manufacturer goes bankrupt like Clipper Wind or no longer has available replacement equipment like GE? What if key components are on back order indefinitely? Your operator will have certain obligations set forth in your O&M agreement. How detailed and specific can you get when describing their obligations and ensuring adherence? How flexible is the contract to change throughout the term? What happens if the contractor or one of its subcontractors goes bankrupt or fails to perform? What if the contractor has inadequate insurance for valid claims? What if a subcontractor causes a road fatality just outside the project site? Now in Texas, there are many risks associated with site, local, regional, state, and national selection. Some risks are manageable and some risks are also insurable. But how well do you currently understand and control these risks at each geographic scale? For example, temperature. How can the project perform in the short and long term during extremely cold or hot periods? Precipitation. How could extremely rare snowfall or rain events impact the project directly or indirectly? Legal. How could a hypothetical insurance claim be impacted by law? What if Texas decided to mandate workers' compensation insurance, for example? Regulatory. What if the state requires a higher percentage of renewable megawatts and/or storage megawatt hours installed to replace certain megawatt of retired assets? Public. Sentiment and opinion. What if people sour on renewable or nuclear energy? What if people demand more than you can provide? Political. Sentiment and opinion. What if elected officials act in opposition to your strategy and plan? Tax. How are you leveraging tax benefits associated with the energy transition to optimize the financials of each project? Some define the risk management cycle comprising 5 key steps, and part of this feedback loop includes evaluating company performance after a loss. How well did you respond and recover? Now, since we don't have a functional time machine, we encourage proactive efforts to mitigate and manage risks before they manifest into a loss. We characterize one main category of this mitigation and management as loss control. If something can catch fire, loss control efforts may include fireproofing, smoke and fire detection, alarms, and fire suppression. To supplement loss control, you can undertake efforts to develop crisis response and crisis management plans. These can help mitigate the loss directly, as well as provide ongoing support to CPS, the local community, and other stakeholders after the event. These response and management plans can include public relations, litigation, employee, environmental, and other areas of support. Developing these plans may include workshops and internal meetings to discuss hypothetical, catastrophic situations and ensuring that all stakeholders are prepared. Longer-term planning often requires a different approach to support. One example is scenario planning. Shell developed scenario planning decades ago as a way to objectively stress test long-term strategic plans. When accounting for independent drivers such as economic strength, popular opinion or support of the environment, weather volatility, etc., you can develop some extreme yet plausible scenarios to describe a future state, say in the year 2050. These scenarios are agnostic to how they're achieved, but rather describe an extreme projection for these drivers. You can then stress test your assumed future state of a business plan in these scenarios to gauge viability or discover blind spots or key assumptions for success. Now, most utility companies maintain many different insurance policy coverage types. What do you notice in this graphic? There are gaps. Every policy has coverage limitations, conditions, and exclusions. It's helpful to show that not all risks are insured and emphasize the importance of understanding and controlling your risks. How would you operate if you didn't buy any insurance? Now, for every segment of insurable risks where you buy insurance, there are a few key drivers that will have the most influence on the scope and cost of coverage. Market dynamics, industry losses, your risk profile and risk tolerance, and your actual loss experience. Any of these can contribute single or even double-digit changes up or down for each policy. Now, before we conclude, I want to quickly highlight the current state, trends, and outlook for a variety of risk categories that impact CPS in a variety of ways. We could easily spend the entire time allotted to discuss any one of these. We certainly welcome the opportunity to continue this conversation about any or all of these in the future. On the power generation supply side, we see increased supply and shift to newer and more efficient combustion turbines, renewable energy power gen, and various forms of energy storage. We're also seeing a reduction in coal-fired power plants as well as older and inefficient simple-cycle gas-fired power plants. The current growth trends heavily rely on tax incentives and state resiliency initiatives. Battery energy storage systems are the current dominant storage technology, and we're seeing emergent growth in microgrids. The future will remain sensitive to supply chain and political risk, both foreign and domestic. There is also the risk of demand outpacing supply, ultimately influencing the pace of older asset retirement and adoption of certain technologies at scale. On the power demand side, there's a substantial growth from residential, industrial, and data consumers, such as data centers and Bitcoin miners. In Texas, we see growth across these sectors as well as expanded electrical vehicle fleets. Conservation, efficiency improvements, and old asset retirement as part of your energy transition efforts contribute to minor offsets to demand growth. Overall, grid resiliency and supply and demand balance will be key areas of focus. As the Texas population and industry grows, power demand will grow with it. Politics and government can substantially influence power generation growth both in the short and long term. We see mixed support for incentives for different options, which can complicate long-term planning. Economic growth and incentives from tax, loans, and strategic equity investors will continue to provide supply-side support. Regional and state economics will likely remain strong relative to other regions in the country, and the long-term trends remain positive. People risk will continue to challenge all businesses as they manage their aging workforce, plan leadership transitions, and contend with generationally different habits for using technology. Who will you hire and how will you train them? Who are your customers of the future? We expect growth in Texas to remain positive, which will support a diverse workforce across in-person and remote labor roles. More people will continue demanding more electrified products, services, infrastructure, and lifestyle. We may also see accelerated growth in climate resilience communities in the face of extreme weather, droughts, wildfire, and more. Physical risk remains inherent to all assets. However, your vulnerability, resiliency, and responsiveness can be subject to change. We see increasing event volatility, which can impact your balance sheet, insurance costs, or both. It is helpful to understand both direct impacts to your assets as well as indirect impacts to the surrounding communities in how you plan and prepare. Contractual risk transfer remains a minefield for all of us who aren't attorneys, and even for some who are. It's important to be aware of current best practices and have robust controls in place to manage your contractual risk profile. While it is good to remain aware of how case law, litigation strategies, and regulations all change over time, CPS and its insurers will likely remain a deep pocket for many complex and catastrophic claims involving your business. Investment risk can directly and indirectly impact CPS. Investment risk will influence CPS's or your competitors' access to capital. It is good to be aware of this dynamic. We currently see investment in projects that benefit from Inflation Reduction Act tax credits, such as PV solar, battery energy storage system, hydrogen, green ammonia, carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration, and various domestic manufacturing supporting these sectors. The IRA tax credits created a boon for these investments, allowing companies to directly offset material amounts of tax burden or monetize the credits by partnering with tax equity investors. More capital can support growth, reinvestment, resiliency improvements, improved maintenance, improved spare equipment programs, improved personnel. The competitive market will continue to reward those who are creative and efficient with their capital, especially those who can account for the risk associated with every marginal dollar invested. The insurance market is cyclical, and such cycles often span many consecutive years. We're currently on year 7 of a hard insurance market, and in some areas are already seeing some softening. It remains to be seen if we'll enjoy a substantially soft market across many insurance lines as soon as next year. Those companies who buy the least insurance tend to be the least concerned about market cycles. Creative uses of captives, alternative risk transfer, and other alternatives to insurance are driving substantial value for certain strategic companies, setting them up for sustainable long-term success. Any partnership can come with risk to the extent that you relinquish control to the other party. Certain strategic partnerships enable synergies or the necessary capital to succeed with planned growth. Hyper-specialization can create unique partnership opportunities and sometimes in unlikely areas. Consider cross-industry partnerships to secure long-term demand of your planned growth in supply. Technical risk remains a key driver of insurability and cost for all power generation projects. To the extent that you can successfully utilize proven, reliable, and resilient technology, your cost of risk should remain optimal. Technology continues to permeate and influence operations, enabling smarter operations and maintenance programs, more strategic investments, and allow you to confidently retain more risk. Counterparty risk may remain challenging in some segments, original equipment manufacturers and contract risk in particular. OEMs control the extent in which they support warranty and maintenance obligations. Some OEMs change operational direction or even go out of business. If a project depends upon unique materials, equipment, manufacturing location, or trained personnel, that adds other layers of supply chain risk. Contractors and their subcontractors can present outsized risk to a project to the extent that inadequate quality and workmanship controls are in place. From driver safety training to substance abuse policies, contractor and subcontractor controls, or a lack thereof, could make the difference between an adverse legal judgment and punitive damages piled on top of said judgment. And of course, we can't neglect to mention the ever-evolving cyber risk landscape due to increasing frequency and severity of attacks on our energy and utility infrastructure. Power generation storage and technology remain abundant today and will continue to evolve. Many current options may be proven, but still unknown or novel to CPS. There are increasing options to reduce the carbon footprint of carbon-intensive assets, and in some cases, carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration can salvage the economic viability of a project. Farther in the future, fusion, fission, and hydrogen have an increasing role to play, while advances in material science could substantially improve energy efficiency on the demand and transmission side. Just as a quick reference, I'm summarizing some key technologies, highlighting them with the growth potential in the CPS portfolio. Before I move on to the next slide, does anybody have any questions so far or about the content of slide 26? I'm nearly finished, but.
And maybe I should have asked you this when you started, but I'm not sure, are you our insurance representative? In other words, why are you appearing here today? Just to give us this broad view, and is Marsh our primary insurer?
To clarify, Marsh is your current insurance broker and risk advisor, and I am on behalf of Marsh representing our risk advisory group.
Right, and tell me about yourself and how long you've been with Marsh and that sort of thing.
Okay, great question. My name is Bill Cost. I'm based in Houston, Texas. I've been with Marsh for a little over 2 years. My career is closer to 2 decades, all focused exclusively on supporting the energy sector. I'm a chemical engineer by background, and I've been an insurance underwriter, insurance broker, and risk management consultant.
So you're our primary broker?
Marsh is, yes.
Marsh is. And is it a team that?
It is a very large team, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You go ahead and finish.
Just to be aware, for everyone's reference, I've included some other statistics about the different technologies and recognize if you're not familiar with any of these, I welcome the opportunity either now or in the future to discuss them in detail.
Are you finished?
Almost.
Okay, thank
one
you.
more slide. Thank you. In order to succeed, you will need to navigate across your risk landscape. Whether they are known risks associated with known technologies or unknown risks associated with future political support, CPS must understand and control its risks to maximize its chances for success. Similar to summiting Everest, people may see only the results without appreciating the preparation, work, and support that you undertook behind the scenes. You can be pioneers of your community and enable many others to positively transform their lives based on your successful energy transition. I trust you found this presentation informative, engaging, and insightful. Thank you again for your time and attention. I can be available now or offline to answer any further questions that you or the board has.
Do we have any board members have any questions?
I have a few questions.
Okay, sure.
If you'll put up slide 11.
Sorry.
So you characterize this as a quick look at types of insurance that utilities commonly maintain.
Correct.
And I believe there's 17 circles.
Yes.
And this may be, I'll be surprised if you know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, how many of these 17 types of insurance is CPS Energy currently maintaining?
I would say most, if not all. I don't have the entire laundry list memorized, but I suspect and expect that CPS maintains most, if not all of those specifically. We would have to consult with our placement team to validate exactly which insurance policies CPS specifically provides. We wanted to illustrate a representative sampling.
Well, if there are types of insurance, for example, that are up there that we're not maintaining, I was going to ask you your level of concern that we don't have those types of insurance, but you can't specify those today.
I probably can't specify, but generally speaking, with any client that doesn't buy insurance today of a certain type, we always welcome a chance to discuss the risks and help you make an informed decision whether or not it makes sense to continue self-insuring or buy the extra insurance down the road.
Bill, can you educate the board on the process we use to do an annual review of our insurance needs?
Great question. It will vary by line of coverage in terms of the scope of review, but generally speaking, you will look at the current coverage you have, understand your current risk profile, compare how your coverage compares to your peer group, and as well as how it is fit for purpose based on your current risk profile and your expected risk profile of the subsequent year. Dialogue will also include additional risk mitigation options, risk engineering, analytics, and things like that. So that way you can potentially, within the scope of a policy term, make improvements to your risk profile and facilitate a more efficient outcome in the subsequent renewal.
Christine, you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hey, thank you. Great. Oh, you have one up there. I'm sorry.
I was a little confused about the context of this too, and I don't really understand. I appreciate the presentation. It was really good and really comprehensive. It seems like a lot of the stuff we already got, even just from Anne Marie, we already got some of this. So I guess I don't understand if the purpose is because we need to start thinking about getting more services from Marsh, or I just don't know where I'm not really sure why we.
Yeah, Dr. Romero, our approach always is to, to give you an objective view of the world, both from inside CPS Energy's perspective and then from the people that that give us, give us advice. So, one of the things I've heard loud and clear during my time as CEO is the board's interest in wanting to know who's giving us advice based on the subject matter. So we're trying, to find different ways to bring folks in who are at the table with us when we're making complex decisions and running the business. I mean, this is a complex business. So, we're going to try to do that more and more unless a board, doesn't want it. But this is an example of that, is to give you some perspective on who's at the table with us.
I think, as being the risk management chair, I think it was a good idea to knowing all the insurances have, because as a superintendent, as a new superintendent, I got caught one time with not knowing all the insurance, and a school burned down and we did not have insurance pay for it the first 6 months I was on the job. But it happened that we overpaid the insurance company, TASB, and they end up covering it. So I asked them to cover all the things that we're doing as far as insurance, because if something happened, the first thing we're gonna say, well, we didn't cover it, we didn't know. But now we understand all the insurance that's available, and an outside consultant that's presenting this information, letting us know that we are covered. Any other questions?
No, I just think then maybe this slide would have been better to say a quick look at types of insurance that
Yeah.
CPS Energy has instead of that utilities commonly maintain, which doesn't
Yeah.
tell us anything about those organizations.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions?
This is just a closing statement, and for me, what this was, again, an environmental scanning of what's out there. And then, again, it reiterates everything that was discussed today, the great statement by Mr. Steen, and everybody else, like, the landscape's gonna change, here's where we may or may not go. And to me, just reaffirms again that part of planning means internal planning, validated by a third party, and we just put it out there for the public and for us to know as trustees. So I sincerely appreciate the presentation.
you.
For me, it's about environmental scanning and what are the risks, what are the opportunities, et cetera. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 7. Evan?
Try that again. Good afternoon, Committee Chair Dr. Mackey and fellow
afternoon.
trustees. You've heard artificial intelligence, or AI, already referenced a couple of times today, so I wanted to provide the Risk Management Committee with an update on some of the work that is underway to address the emergence of AI, not only the work that we've been doing for some time, but also how we're thinking about generative AI and a lot of the progress that is happening rapidly in that space. So I want to start by talking a little bit about our current AI landscape. So artificial intelligence and the use of that technology is nothing new to CPS Energy. We've been leveraging different forms of artificial intelligence for many years. Those include things like machine learning, often used for predictive analytics, AI models, robotic process automation, and other forms of AI technology to introduce different forms of operational efficiency throughout our organization. And I've highlighted a couple of our existing use cases here on this slide. As an example, vegetation management. We talk quite a bit about the work that our operations team do to leverage vegetation management and that data to help ensure the resiliency of our system. Behind that is quite a bit of AI work that actually takes the data that is captured, aggregates it, and then makes it available for our operational teams. We also have a solution that is our underground cable failure detector. So we look at a number of different data points to help determine where we should invest proactively to replace aging underground failures so we can address those needs before they actually appear as a customer outage. So those are a couple of examples. There are many listed here and many others that are not listed here where we're leveraging AI today. Now, on the right, you can see, though, as many of us are experiencing in our personal lives, that the emergence of generative AI is really accelerating interest in the AI space and is something that we are certainly mindful of internally. We believe that generative AI can present quite a number of opportunities for us internally, but we also recognize that we need to be mindful of the risks and other security implications as we determine where best to position this new technology. Now, to ensure that we're thinking broadly across the AI landscape, we are engaging a number of our partners. You can see some of them listed below. So our approach here is really to have various inputs that are considering the strategy that we are developing from an AI perspective, specifically focused on generative AI. So what we've been focused on over the last year, this effort really started in the late summer and into fall of last year, is putting together an AI framework. And our goal here is to really ensure that we are including AI as part of our broader digital governance to ensure that, again, we're effectively delivering value through the use of this technology while balancing that with all of the appropriate risks and mitigations. So underneath this framework, we have 3 primary working groups. The first is focused on the strategy for AI. Of course, we want to identify opportunities that translate to efficiencies or benefits externally for our customers and internally to our workforce. And one of the things that we're considering as we do that is how can we align opportunities to introduce AI to Vision 2027 in the near term, but also longer term as we think about Horizon 2050. The second working group that we've identified is really focused on governance. So understanding that AI and generative AI are not things that just an IT organization can do in a silo. It is crucial that we collaborate cross-functionally. So we are partnering very closely with our cybersecurity team, legal, ethics, compliance, and our business stakeholders to really understand how all of those inputs work together as we're developing our long-term plan from a governance perspective. And then, of course, as we start rolling out these technology solutions, it's critically important that we have a framework in place to ensure that we can manage them effectively from an operational perspective. So we believe that these three components, strategy, governance, and operations, work really well together to provide a comprehensive view into our overarching AI framework. So I want to provide an update in 4 primary areas that is really the result of a lot of the hard work that has come out of the working groups that I just spoke to. I'll start in the upper left-hand corner. Awareness is critical. Generative AI is something that was not well known, certainly for most a couple of years ago, but because it is so readily available to individuals, in their personal life as well as emergence in the workplace, we really want to ensure that the organization, our workforce, has a broad understanding of what this technology is and how it can be effectively used. Now, we started by targeting awareness with our working groups, those individuals that we've brought to the table to help build out the framework, but we're also putting plans together around how we can educate our workforce as we begin to deploy these technologies across the organization. Now, as I move down to the bottom left quadrant, critically important is policy and governance. So we want to ensure that we're providing the appropriate amount of controls and awareness to the organization around how and when we can use these types of technologies. Now, I mentioned earlier that we've been leveraging AI for many years. We have a number of existing policies that are already in place today, things like our information use policy, our data security policy, and others. But we also recognize that with new technologies such as generative AI, there are some areas that we have not addressed before, so we are focused on putting together a Gen AI policy so we can address those gaps. In the upper right-hand corner, from an accelerator perspective, we're really looking for some low-hanging fruit. Where can we start introducing generative AI to yield benefit to the organization and our customers? One of the easiest ways to do that is where we find embedded generative AI. So that's where our IT vendor partners already are deploying these capabilities within technologies that exist within our ecosystem today. So you'll see under the accelerators, we've already identified a couple of use cases. The first is as part of providing IT support to our workforce. How can we deploy a chat bot to help with that? That's an opportunity where we can leverage that technology internally before we look for opportunities to deploy that externally to our customers. And Microsoft Copilot, that's something that many of you may be familiar with in your personal use or in other workplaces. We have started a pilot for Microsoft Copilot as well. So we're looking for those accelerators or opportunities to start introducing this technology. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, of course, aligned to today's discussion, recognizing that, with the benefits do come risks, and ensuring that we're thinking about those risks and developing strategies to effectively mitigate them proactively. And I'll hit a couple of those here on this slide. So specifically, as we think about generative AI, what are some of the concerns that are top of mind or risks that our working groups are thinking about? Of course, cybersecurity and regulatory compliance is always at the forefront, but that is certainly one that continues to remain true as we think about our AI strategy. But data governance and privacy is another key component. Now, one of the things as we think about generative AI that we certainly recognize is that these tools are accessible outside of the workplace. So as we're putting together these policies and guidance for our workforce, while we've contemplated how our company data can be used, and I mentioned we have an information use policy today, we really want to be a bit more clear to our employees around what they can do with our data and these public generative AI platforms such as ChatGPT. So these are the types of things. I just wanted to hit a couple of examples that we're contemplating. And they very much are informed as we think about our emerging and disruptive technology risk, which is an identified risk in our risk register, and certainly supported by what's happening broadly in the industry, as Anna Marie spoke about earlier today. So where are we in our roadmap from a generative AI perspective? As I mentioned, we really started this effort a year ago as we started putting together the framework concept and the working groups that I've mentioned. We've made quite a bit of progress, and as we look ahead towards the end of the year, we are moving forward with some of the proof of concepts that I mentioned with Microsoft Copilot and our IT support chatbot. In the balance of this year, we will be finalizing our generative AI policy. Again, we have some external partners that are working closely with our internal teams to get that completed. And then our goal is to identify how we can roll out that ongoing operational support model as we continue to ramp up the use and deployment of these technologies in the future. With that, I welcome any questions.
Do we have any board members? Any questions?
I do have a statement
go ahead,
that
Mr.
just to close out Evan's presentation. I've been to my third quarter CEO meetings on the national boards that I'm on, and every utility in the country right now is doing this work. In fact, I think we're probably ahead of the curve, because some are really struggling with where to even begin. So I'm proud of the team. I appreciate the chair's leadership and the board's leadership, which pushing us to get this done. But based on the what I've seen at the national level, I do think I feel real good about the work we've done here.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Board members? Any board members? Oh, thank you, Evan. Appreciate it. Next, we have number 8. Ms. Landenbaugh?
Good afternoon. I'm here today to give an update on Horizon 2050. As you all may recall, we spoke about Horizon 2050 back on September the 9th. Today, I want to cover a few items. First, just give a reminder on our stakeholder engagement process, walk through the framework as it's currently drafted. I'm going to give summary stakeholder feedback to date, and we are still collecting feedback both internally with our team members here at the utility, our customers, and we have several community meetings that are still to be held this month. We'll share some feedback trends, and then we'll again share the 2050 survey for anyone who's listening to the meeting that would like to participate. And while I have time at the end for Q&A, I welcome questions throughout. So just a reminder, we started this work a little bit more than a year ago with our leadership offsite and really began to work on a longer-term framework beyond 2027, which involved early employee engagement. You heard our advisor from Marsh talking about scenario planning. We worked with a consultant to look at different scenarios for our future and brought the concepts back to you all on September 9th, as I mentioned. And from October through December, we're getting as full of community and other stakeholder engagement, including our employees, as possible. We do still have meetings with the City Council upcoming, our CIC, as well as the MUC. And so please encourage anyone that you know of in the community or in the different circles that you work in to complete the survey and provide us their feedback. And we'll come back early next year for a Board of Trustees resolution and then continue on with the detailed work of strategic action planning. So as a reminder, this is our draft framework for Horizon 2050. We, through the work that's been undertaken, have arrived at a vision statement of a community empowered for generations. I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview. One of the points of feedback that we've had is a simple change to change it to our community empowered for generations. So we're over the next few weeks going to take adjustments such as that to the framework. Our mission, and we've actually made an adjustment to this mission since we last brought the framework to you all by adding the word safely, but to safely power our community with reliable, sustainable energy at a competitive price. And we've received a lot of feedback on the word choice as well as the content, so there will be adjustments. The 5 key goal areas that we have in the draft framework are reliability, And as we talk about the future, we recognize it's important for us to just inherently have a reliable energy system, but also to be able to be agile in changes to demand and supply, and also be agile in understanding our evolving customer needs. We had discussions earlier in the meeting about sustainability. We certainly recognize our community has adopted CAP goals, but also recognize that the power generation sector in particular is evolving. It's evolving to different types of technology, more efficient technology, and cleaner sources of energy. Competitive pricing is a third goal area, which really speaks to how much we charge our customers ultimately for the energy that we provide. We can't do all three of these outcomes without being a financially resilient organization. And again, really what we're talking about there is just making sure that we have internal strength as an organization, not only to protect ourselves during periods of difficult times or downturns, but also to have the financial resiliency to be opportunistic and take advantage of opportunities in the market to help better position the utility to serve our customers better. And then we do all of this through operating with excellence, not only ensuring that our team members are trained, but they have the tools, systems, and technology in order to continue to add and increase value for our customers and the community. So this is a summary of feedback to date. Big shout out to our corporate communications and marketing team, as well as our marketing consultant that helps us in this space, KGB Texas. We've had a total engagement, direct engagement of over 2,300 surveys or focus groups, but we've had much more interaction around Horizon 2050, and we will have a summary of all of the interactions when we are out of market with this, completed with this. We've had, you can see the numbers there for employees and community, and then we've had detailed focus groups where we've spent hours with our customers of all sizes, complexity, and need, and have gotten a lot of personal and direct verbatim feedback on what's important to our customers. Our vision statement was really overall liked by both our community and our employees, and so that was helpful, resonant feedback. As we talk about goals and what's important for the long term, we heard very resoundingly that reliability is the most important thing to our customers. And you can see there the percentages. Reliability was selected most often as the first priority, with pricing or affordability being second. And depending on it, whether you're looking at our customers or the community or our employees, there was sort of a tie for third, with sustainability being third most important to our external stakeholders. And of course, our employees, who had a healthy percentage of our surveys, felt that it was important to also focus on team and business excellence. So this is a summary of trends. We have a lot more detail, but wanted to share, reliability came out and surfaced as really the key and the consistent top priority across all of our stakeholders. In particular, there certainly was a very clear understanding of when we do have major events, that restoration is so critical to everyone's lives and livelihoods. Our larger customers see the loss of reliability as directly impacting their business, and so resoundingly, reliability, both blue sky reliability and reliability when our system or conditions are stressed, are very key for our stakeholders. Affordability and cost came next. We actually talked about competitive pricing and have gotten quite a bit of feedback that the folks prefer value or affordability. That was pretty consistent, which is interesting because we ourselves talk about being competitively priced. It was consistently, again, a top priority, being second amongst our stakeholders. There were some interesting competitive pricing comments, however. There are a recognition amongst many customers who operate in other areas that we are very competitively priced. In fact, some of our larger customers stated they would be willing to pay even higher for higher reliability. But it was very clear, especially amongst our small business and some of our residential customers, that we have a lot of folks who are struggling just personally in their life, and it's really important that we manage affordability for the long term. We also got quite a bit of feedback about partnership and transparency. In particular, our large customers were very complimentary of the skill of the engineers and technical teams that they work with, but they really want us to enable our team members to help them solve problems. They're seeking more partnership, they're seeking innovation, they're seeking even more transparency as to how we go about making decisions and work with them to meet their growing power needs. And across the board, customers are interested in seeking more options, right? Whether that's options to get to market quicker. Some of our large customers want to figure out ways to get to market quicker, get power quicker. And many of our residential customers are eager to learn even more tips and tools to help them save energy. Sustainability, it was interesting. Sustainability is an important topic, but it's polarizing. Both the qualitative and quantitative surveys that we conducted to date have indicated that it is not as important as reliability, cost, and what I would call service or customer service. Not that it's not important, but that as we really ask folks to force rank their priorities, that reliability and cost absolutely are table stakes. There were some interesting demographic and geographic trends. Younger participants, people who are, not my generation, someone less than X, are more inclined to show sustainability at a higher level. And then demographically, we did see some more propensity to rank sustainability higher in the northern parts of our service territory. And again, customers are seeking more tools and tips and methods to conserve energy. We did have some other key themes, and this is not by no means not an exhaustive list, but both internally and externally, there was a real strong desire for us to further emphasize safety. We struggled as a team, I'll be honest, because we always talk about safety as not a goal. It's a value, right? Goals can change, priorities can change, but values are who you are. And safety is something that we intrinsically aspire to always embody as a utility, not only for our own team, but for the customers and community we serve. Also, just general comments about including more innovative and leadership-focused language. We think we're going to be able to accomplish that in our goal statements. And then consistently, we're a bunch of engineers and lawyers and other folks, and so we get lost in our acronyms and our corporate speak. So we're also going to be working as we refine the model to simplify our language and make it really clear, what we're shooting for. So that concludes my remarks. This was just a brief update, so you all know where we are in the process. I do have the Horizon 2050 survey QR code up. It's everywhere, so people should be able to access it. But for those of you all who are watching online or listening to a replay, we highly encourage folks to go out and complete the survey. We're reading through and listening to all the feedback that we're receiving. And that concludes my remarks. I'll take any questions that you all have.
Any questions or comments by the board members? Yes.
Thank you. I have a few questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, maybe I don't need to ask my questions, but I'd like to get a little clarity. So looking at your slide number 3 in your map here. So I know you're still doing the stakeholder engagement, and we're hearing this now, but then early 2025, we're going to have a resolution. So at what point, if any, or maybe it's today, I don't know, do we get a chance to weigh in a little bit more on maybe some of the words? This is really important, and I don't want it to be where we don't get another chance to talk about it, and then in January, we're just going to vote on it up or down.
Actually, you will get more chance. It's just phase 1, I think, approval.
Yes, so, we had our initial meeting back in September. Today, wanted to bring back the framework to you all with kind of a summary of of the feedback that we're receiving. A group of us are meeting this week to actually incorporate that feedback to further refine the framework. And we're going to be offering one-on-ones with each of the board members in the month of December. But we'll be sharing this information as we go along between now and January. And certainly we can have a very full conversation in January as well.
Yeah, we're also, we'll be at a session on the 19th. Elena will be presenting to council. We've got all of our stakeholder engagement team fanning out across the community to meet with suburban cities and trade associations and all the other folks that we normally meet with when we do a full, kind of full press on this. I would just say that even after your one-on-ones, if you see something that just really, you feel really strongly about, our goal is when we present the resolution to you in January, that it would have incorporated all the feedback you've given us. And then we'll figure out whatever cadence makes sense, probably no less than annually. We'll revisit it to see what's changed and, from a landscape perspective. But I would encourage all trustees, take advantage of the one-on-ones, and then we can talk about it in an open session in January as well, Dr. Romero. If there's just some things you want to say about the work that we've done, you'll have an opportunity when we approve the resolution.
Okay, did you say an A session on the 19th? I thought that was a Wednesday.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think it's B.
Or is it a B session? I'm sorry.
Session on the 19th, okay. Well, I'll just say the thing I said last time, and I still have concern about is cleaner energy to all, because I think there's vastly different understandings of what that means. The other thing, it's minor, but it's important, and I watched the town hall, which was really good, and I felt this was the one thing that didn't get a clear answer when y'all were talking about carbon neutrality. And I think everybody has trouble with this, because the answer is always, this doesn't mean there will be zero carbon emissions, but in some way they will be offset. And the way in which they will be offset is always a little bit hard to explain, but I think we need an explanation. It could be planting trees, or it could be investing in things, but then you get into that whole problem about, are you investing in things that were going to be there already? So how is that actually increasing carbon neutrality? In my class, we were just reading the Apple Corporation's carbon neutrality book. It's huge. And it's just hard to get at. And I felt like that person really wanted to understand that in the town hall. And I just don't think he had time for an answer on it. But that is something I would like to be able to communicate to the community. If we are saying we're going to get carbon neutrality at a certain point, we have to explain what that means.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then, so when you say additional focus groups, 558, does that mean there's 558 people, or you did 558 focus groups?
Oh, my word. Thank goodness. No, we didn't do 558. We did 500. There were 558 people that participated, and they were across our customer spectrum.
Okay.
Would love to have done more, but.
Yeah, that would be a lot. Okay, I thought I had. I guess I'm not completely comfortable with, I understand, but saying sustainability is an important but polarizing theme. I don't think we need to put that value into it necessarily.
Yeah, and the comment wasn't to indicate that that's how we would characterize it, but just that we had a very significant diversity of input. And I don't think it was reflective of CPS Energy, just kind of the, no pun intended, but the climate,
Right.
And so, as we shape our goals around, our long-range goals around CAP, for example, we're going to make sure that is contemplated in our path to carbon neutrality.
Yeah, and I get it. People disagree, they disagree, but doesn't mean they're angry at one another, and that's what polarizing sort of implies to me. No, but we don't know that. Anyway, I had my class do this as an assignment, so 20 of your respondents were from my class.
Great, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you for this.
I think it's great work, and I specifically was very interested on the larger organizations, wanting to be more part of the planning. I think it's important as some of the number one consumers, but also some of the number one organizations that help us when we have high peak times are the first ones to conserve. So I do think that the more that we work with our larger customers, the more that we could, develop some innovative solutions, some partnerships, as well as meet some of the goals that Dr. Romero just stated. It can happen through advancements in technology and through partnerships. And there is a clear divide based on income and based on part of town. So I think, again, as you stated, this is feedback from the community. It's not our view as an organization. This is, again, it's important. This is unbiased feedback. Well, subjective feedback from the community, but for us, we're just presenting it. And so, again, thank you for the great work.
Steen, yes,
I do. Ms. Ball, thank you for your presentation today. And I always say CPS Energy is fortunate to have someone of your caliber as our Chief Strategy Officer. If you'd put up slide 5, it's notable how much stakeholder feedback you've received to date. And I had that same thought. Were there 558 focus groups? That really impressed me. But it was, but you have surveyed over 1,000 CPS Energy employees as well as 771 community members. And I guess on top of that, you've had 558 people in focus groups. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So my initial question to you is: were the surveys, particularly the employee surveys, anonymous?
Yes, sir. There was an opportunity if you wanted to provide demographic information to say, so that we could kind of look at trends, but that was voluntary. But your identity was not part of the survey.
All right. So let's look at the top goals. Our community and CPS Energy employees agree that the number one goal is reliability. So you see the community, 55%, employees 67%, or 2/3. The second goal of both groups is competitive price, another term for affordability. Community 20%, employees 11%. But when you get to third goals, because the numbers don't total 100, there's variety. But interestingly, for CPS Energy employees, team business excellence was number 3 with 10%, and for the community, sustainability was number 3 with 10%. And I think you're defining sustainability as being diversification of our energy sources to provide cleaner energy to all. So I would say this data is real interesting. It reinforces what I've been emphasizing, that far and away, the two main concerns are reliability and affordability. Others say sustainability is a paramount concern, but I don't believe it's reflected in this data. And I wonder how sustainability would fare as a goal in your surveys if you linked it with continuing rate increases that are going to be needed in the coming years to support the substantial sustainability efforts CPS Energy is planning. So please put up slide 6. This is the first page of your summary of feedback trends. Here you again show reliability and affordability as numbers 1 and 2. Please move to slide 7. And here you characterize number 4, sustainability, as, quote, important but polarizing theme, close quote, and state that, quote, qualitative and quantitative surveys indicate that it's not as important as reliability, cost, and service, close quote. And I would say this feedback backs up what I've been stressing all along, and I just want your overall response.
Well, thank you for those comments. And I think it's, so let me respond to what we heard from customers, right? We're getting them to tell us, what are your top priorities? So this isn't about an or, this or that, or this or that. It's about all things being equal, what are the most important things that we provide to you in your life, right, in your business? And clearly we're an energy company, so having reliable energy is the value that we create. Doing so in an affordable manner is important. But we also have interests, both as an organization and in the community, to do so in a reliable, resilient, and clean manner, right? So to your question about investments and rate cases, et cetera, we've talked a lot about this as a board, with you all as board members and as senior executives. The utility is facing tremendous growth. We also have aging assets. When we're talking about the plants that we're retiring those plants because they're at end of life and their technology is not as efficient as newer types of technology. And so as we look to invest, we're in a period of time where we have to invest to replace these aging assets. And it wouldn't be prudent to invest in technology from the 60s or 70s. As much as I love being a 70s vintage, we want newer, more cutting edge, more efficient technologies. And those technologies, by their very nature, most of them have lower operating expenses. They're cleaner and they're more efficient. They behave better in the market than our existing older assets. So it's not an either or, it's about change, right? This is all about change. Our assets are aging. We're modernizing all of our systems, and we're going to have to renew our assets, and that's what's driving the need for additional investment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Great presentation. Appreciate it. At this time, we'll move on to item number 9, committee governance review. If everybody will look at item number 9. If you see there's a red line on 1 or 2, on the first 2, and then the second part is a cleaner part. Do we have any questions, comments?
Sir, I'd just like to note that, subject to the prior discussion on page 71 of your packet, which is page 1 of 2 of the red line, the bottom paragraph on the page, the
Yes.
last sentence, I have changed to read, "The minutes of the meeting will be prepared by staff and approved by the board at a regularly scheduled board meeting or a risk management committee meeting."
Okay, yeah. Okay, any questions? Any more questions?
I have some comments. I'd like to put up slide 71 or page 1 of 2 of the Risk Management Committee Charter. I don't know if that's possible.
I can,
Well, anyway, I'll just
Go ahead and read
I
it.
just said, within paragraph 2 entitled Authority is the sentence, and for clarity, I'll read the proposed amended version. The kinds of risks to be considered include but are not limited to financial risk, generation diversity, the existing and future regulatory climate, investment risk, and emerging utility risk. It's noteworthy that the very first risk mentioned is financial risk. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but we've not touched upon financial risk today in any substantial way. And specifically, I'm talking about the dramatic increase in our indebtedness, which has ballooned from $6 billion to $8 billion in just a few years. Ditto the corresponding spike in our debt capitalization ratio, our leverage metric.
I just want to make sure I understand, sir. Am I supposed to, are you suggesting changes to this, or you're just commenting on something else?
Are you trying to interrupt me? Because I'm just.
No,
No, we're just trying to get
take me very-
clarification on what
I'm
this
trying
is.
to understand if
Clarify.
I'm supposed to be capturing suggested changes to the committee charter that we are voting on.
It says that it's a committee governance review, so it's given me an opportunity to read the charter, and so I'm noticing that financial risk is number 1. I'm making a
I'm
point
just
that we
assuming
haven't.
I don't need to
talked about.
capture your changes.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
well,
All right.
I know you go ahead and continue.
This won't take very
Yeah,
long.
go ahead. I got a question on it.
Okay. Ditto the corresponding spike in our debt capitalization ratio, our leverage metric. It's around 64%, well above the 60% threshold, and it's on its way to 70% in the coming years, despite every 2-year rate hikes baked in. There's also the related intractable problem whereby 20% of our residential customers are in arrears on their CPS payments. The charter for this committee seems to emphasize financial risk, and yet it's largely absent, completely absent from our discussion today. And then finally, I want to make a note that in this meeting today gave, and you know, you attached the charter, so it gave me an opportunity to review the charter, so I've got another comment about it. I noticed the language which appears in the last bullet point of both the current and proposed revision of the Risk Management Committee Charter, to wit, confirm annually that all responsibilities in the charter have been sufficiently fulfilled. And I just asked the question, where is this annual confirmation? And it strikes me today that we're more focused on amending the charter than abiding by its mandates. But I guess I'll ask, where is the annual confirmation as required by this committee's charter? And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Steen, on this right here. I appreciate that on that authorized the kind of risk, and we looked at that in financial risk, generational diversity, existing or future regulatory climate, and all of this. As we proceed with the risk management, we have 2 risk management meetings a year. And we try to pick and choose, yes, we choose, which I'm the chairman of it, which ones that we're gonna do this meeting. Now, if any time you would like to give myself or the attorney or the CEO a call and like to see something, we'd be more than happy to present it. But it's hard for one person to put things on the agenda when not all persons are team. We sitting up here, we're not team players. A team player would call the chair and say, hey, I see that's not there. Call the attorney, call the CEO and see, hey, instead of making a public spectacle, trying to make a public spectacle of it sometimes, you know, and that's why I cut you off, because twice I noticed that you do some innuendo things a couple of times, and I let it go and I let you complete it. But this time, I would like to see us communicate. If things are not there, communicate with them. I support what you say. I support it 100%. What you say, it should be on there. But if I knew ahead of time, it'd have been corrected. It'd have been, we'll do it if you let us know. But I can come every board meeting and start nitpicking everything, and we won't get anything accomplished. So from now on, if there's something that needs to be addressed, let us know. This is certainly something, you identified the financial, it's certainly something that needs to be addressed. I applaud that. That's more deserving of that opportunity. So proceeding on, this Risk Management Committee charter, for the last 3 years, we have not followed it. We've been going there, but this time we're gonna vote on it, and then we'll do it at the regular board meeting like it should be done, correctly. We'll take care of that. So do we have a motion? Sure.
The last thing you said, was that addressing the confirm annually that all responsibilities outlined in the charter have been fulfilled? Is that what you were saying? We would vote on that at?
I took that as an ask. No, the committee governance review, if I look at it, hold on, I just looked at it in my notes. I can tell you that the last time that the charter was last updated in 2018. There is no requirement for an annual review of this governance document. I think that the question we got, so it's a separate from the question that I got from Trustee Steen, which was, the way I understood the question was, could I point to him a record or a process that served as evidence of meeting a sentence that he read out of that? So I took that as an ask, and I will get it to him.
Oh, let me just say this, because again, the fact that I even have to say this, I think is a bit much. Our job as the administration of CPS Energy is to present the board with a risk view annually of the things that are on that we're paying attention to. And it's the board's charge to ask us questions, and if so, you know, determined to make changes or to make additions. That is the requirement. That's why we have a risk committee meeting. Otherwise, we just talk about risk at the board meeting. That is how we confirm annually that our responsibilities for the charter are outlined. We present our risks and we get feedback from the board to make sure you're informed of the risks as we see them. There's nothing more complicated to it than that, in spite of the conversation.
Thank you.
Can I just finish? It is a simple question, and I agree totally with what you say. And I think that Mr. Steen was just saying, where do we do that? Because it says the Risk Management Committee is tasked with confirming annually. And I think it is a fair question to say, how do we confirm that annually? And that's what I was saying. I thought you were saying we could just do that at the board meeting, which was one thing we could do. Or we could just take this out and just say, since nobody really knows what it means, and we agree if everything Rudy just said, that's your responsibility, fine, we do that. But it's just, I think it's just weird that it's there. So I thought.
Well, and that's not a change, it's been there.
Yeah, I know. There's all kinds of weird things that come up when you look at stuff like this.
I
but-
concur, let's just remove it.
Just remove that bullet.
Remove that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to remove.
We have a second? Yes, the whole thing, and remove that, certain, on that item.
Okay, I second.
Okay? Any other questions?
The other change.
Yes, with the other, again, you're the chairman right now, so just to be clear, we're going to remove that with all the additional changes. That's the clarity that Dr. Romero wants.
With the necessary changes on it.
Yes, can you please make sure that that's exactly what we're
Ms.
doing?
Romero? Ramirez? Ms. Ramirez, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Ms.
I'm sorry.
Ramirez.
Did you get that?
I got the motion and the second. I apologize. The discussion was looking at the bullet point immediate preceding the one we just removed, whether an additional change was needed. So the bullet point above says review and assess the adequacy of the Risk Management Committee charter annually, requesting board approval for the proposed changes. My question to you all is, given that this committee is a meeting of the full board, would you also like to remove that bullet point? Otherwise, the thing is, you would approve this here, and then we would just take this to the same group of you, meeting as a board, to approve again.
If I can make a comment, I think there's a usefulness to put the requirement on us to confirm annually that all responsibilities in the charter have been sufficiently fulfilled. I don't think it's, Mr. Garza, I don't think that, well, by some method, your management and you figure out. It seems to me that you could figure that out. Do you want me to figure it out?
No, I just told you what I think. Our job is to present a risk register to the board at least annually and to get feedback. That's the way we do this. That's the way we've always done this.
Right.
There's been no other instrument by which we
All right, but I don't-
meet that.
Who was the chairman in 2018?
But I don't think we should have a process where I raise the fact that we're not doing something in the charter
I'm
and the
sorry, can I ask the
solution is to
question, who was our
delete it.
chairman in 2018? And who oversaw that committee in 2018?
Who oversaw what?
Who was in charge in 2018?
I believe Trustee Steen, you were the chair at that.
And who was it responsible, who was part of that committee at that time?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Right, so we had occasion, this was the purpose of this being on the agenda today, to review the charter. I'm pointing out things that I think are deficiencies. I think there's a usefulness to doing that, and I don't agree that the solution to it is to eliminate that.
So vote no. So vote no.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
Okay, I just want to
Make
make
it
sure that
clear.
the version that we're voting on to approve includes the change that I mentioned earlier, removes the final bullet point. Do we leave the language as is in the now final bullet point that starts review and assess the adequacy of the Risk Management Committee charter? Do you want to leave that as is?
Are you suggesting that we would just end it after the word annually? And
Yes.
take out requesting board approval for proposed changes?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's that at?
Given that this,
It's on 72, the second to last one.
yes, given that this is a meeting of the full board.
It just seemed, and that was my suggestion when we did it this way, we proposed it this way. There's no reason to do it twice. This meeting was posted, it's agendized, the public can see it. So I just, when you have a committee of the full board,
Done
you
two
shouldn't
this
have
year.
to do it twice.
Okay, can you
Restate it again.
state that again? Let's get clarity on this.
Sorry, yes, sir. So the committee charter, revised committee charter that we're voting on includes the change on the first page that I went over before. It removes the final bullet point on the second page.
Okay.
And then my question is, the second to the last bullet point right now, do we end that bullet point with the word annually? removing the requirement to
Yes,
take the same
remove
vote?
it, yes.
Okay, so then it's removing that, so that's what we're voting on.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay. As far as the last one, confirm annually that all responsibilities outlined in the charter have been sufficiently fulfilled. I don't want to too quickly get past that. I don't know, maybe that is something important for our bond rating committees or somebody that we would have this in here. It seems like what we're stuck on is how we do it. And I don't think that would be that hard, that maybe it could just be a statement that the chair proposes and we all have to vote for it or not vote for it, so that people could communicate whether they feel that we had done this or not. So I guess I'm just saying, I would
I hope this may provide some context. I believe this language is included in every single charter, and at one point when drafting the committee charters was part of a boilerplate that was utilized. So I just encourage you all to understand that I don't believe that it is out of a legal necessity. It is simply a
Okay, thank you.
item that was included.
We have a motion, we have a second to add on the 73, on page 73, where the committee may also conduct meetings and executive session at warranty as permitted by law. Minutes of the meeting will be prepared by staff and approved by board at a regular scheduled meeting or a risk management meeting. The second part is deleting and confirm annually all responsibilities outlined in charter. We have a first and a second. Can we do a roll call? Third one was what?
Forget the third one.
taking out requesting board approval for proposed changes.
Yes. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Trustee Steen?
No.
Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Board Chair Gonzalez?
That's okay. Just Dana Gonzalez is fine, yes.
And Committee Chair?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
And sir, I just will remind you that we did previously defer the vote to approve the minutes of the Risk Committee held on June 17th, 2024. Until after this vote, there was a prior motion to approve by the Vice Chair and a second by Board Chair Gonzalez. All that was deferred to the vote. I just want to confirm that the motion and the second stand.
Yes.
And I will poll the trustees for a vote. Trustee Steen?
No.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Board Chair?
Yes.
Committee Chair?
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, the board is going to recess into an executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including consultation concerning attorney-client matters under Section 551.071, and to deliberate, vote, or take final action on competitive matters under Section 551.086. At the conclusion of the executive session, the board will reconvene in open session, continue the meeting. It's 2:47 p.m. as we go into executive session. Yes, sir. It is 3:47 PM, and the board has concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken and no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We do have a quorum. I will note that Board Chair Gonzalez is no longer in attendance.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? We don't have any?
That was my miss, sir. We have no pending and no new action items. Sorry, I will include in the action items, Trustee Steen asked to include the basis of his objections the basis of his vote no for not approving the prior minutes. I will include that.
We have a motion to adjourn? We have a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? Thank you.